A school teacher named Mary is driving home when she suddenly sees a strange girl on the road. Since the girl clearly needs help, Mary takes her home and decides to take care of her. After a while, Mary asks the girl what happened to her, and she says that the woods attacked her.
The woods did.
Mary looks surprised, but she says it's understandable because the woods have been haunted since some witches were reportedly killed there a long time ago. As she adds that she knows so much about the woods because she's a history teacher at the town's high school, the girl asks if she knows a girl named Sabrina Spellman. Mary says that Sabrina is her student, but as she asks if the strange girl knows her, her voice changes, and she responds that she knows Sabrina's father. Before Mary can understand what's happening, the girl kills her, and a spirit takes control of her body. Following this, she recites a spell and mentions that her work with the Dark Lord has begun. She also adds that she'll deliver Sabrina to him. Elsewhere, Sabrina is hanging out with her boyfriend Harvey and best friends, Susie and Rosalind. After a while together, Sabrina eventually heads home looking happy because she had a nice time with her friends. The next morning, after Sabrina wakes up, she counts the number of days left before her 16th birthday and dark baptism. Sabrina is a half-witch, half-mortal girl who is about to fully embrace her witch side on her 16th birthday, which is the day she'll get baptized and have her name written in the Book of the Beast. Sabrina seems quite excited, and she heads down to meet her witch aunts Zelda and Hilda, as well as her cousin Ambrose, who is a warlock. On seeing her, Zelda quickly reminds Sabrina about the rites for her baptism, one of which involves picking an animal called a familiar who will always be there to protect her as a witch. Instead of making a decision immediately, Sabrina says she'd like to use a summoning spell to call out any animal who wants to be her familiar. Even though Zelda doesn't like this idea, she agrees to let Sabrina do it. A while later, Ambrose asks if she has found a way to tell her mortal friends that she'll be leaving them, but Sabrina says that it's hard for her to do that. He then tells her to do it as soon as possible because combining her witch life with her mortal life won't be easy. Shortly after, Sabrina goes into the woods to use the summoning spell to call out a familiar. No animal responds to her, but 3 witches, Prudence, Agatha, and Dorcas, suddenly appear to her. Sabrina looks surprised to see the weird sisters, but they don't seem happy to see her. They also mention that they don't want a half-mortal to join them in a witch school called the Academy of Unseen Arts, as they add that what happened to Sabrina's parents will happen to her if she comes to the academy. She looks shocked and asks what they mean. However, the girls don't respond to this, though they recite some spells to curse Sabrina. Luckily, Sabrina quickly runs to school to wash off the curse, but she then sees Susie looking hurt after some boys bully her. Sabrina immediately goes to report to the principal, Hawthorne, but since Susie didn't give up any names, he says he can't help. Sabrina is disappointed by this, and as she complains to Harvey, saying that something needs to be done, Mary shows up and offers to help. When Sabrina is in her office, Mary says it's possible for the girl to come up with something to help Susie. Sabrina says that Hawthorne would never approve something like that.
How would that help Susie?
But Mary puts ideas into her head by saying that if the principal went on a sabbatical, her proposal could be approved. Before Sabrina also leaves, Mary mentions that Hawthorne is scared of spiders. Sabrina doesn't suspect that Mary is now acting differently, but she immediately goes to meet Harvey and Rosalind to suggest starting a club to defend women in the school. Later that day, as she's heading home with Harvey, he says he'd like them to spend her birthday together.
About your birthday, Sabrina?
But Sabrina says it won't be possible because she has other plans. As Harvey looks sad about this, Sabrina takes him into the woods to tell him that she's a witch who will pledge her loyalty to the Dark Lord on her birthday. Harvey looks confused, and as this seems too much for him, Sabrina makes him forget everything she said. When she arrives home, Sabrina asks her aunts about her parents and how the weird sisters suggested that their death wasn't natural. Zelda immediately dismisses this suggestion.
What did they say about your mother and father?
And says that the sisters don't know what they're saying because her father and mother, Edward and Diana, died a natural death in a plane crash. Following this, Sabrina forgets about it and heads to her room. Later that night, a cat named Salem appears to her and says he's interested in being her familiar, so she agrees. Shortly after, she then meets Ambrose to help her with a spell to scare Hawthorne so that he'll miss school for a few days. The next morning, Sabrina asks if her baptism can be postponed because she needs more time to talk to her friends. However, Zelda says it's impossible.
Postpone it?
Sabrina starts having doubts about doing the bidding of the Dark Lord, but Zelda mentions that her dead parents also wanted her to be baptized. When she tells Ambrose about her doubts, though, he tells her that she can find clarity by eating from the apple of a particular old tree in the town. Later that day, Hawthorne misses school, so Sabrina and her friends are able to get approval from the vice principal. After school, Sabrina eventually finds the apple Ambrose talked about, but as she eats it and asks if she should be baptized, she suddenly gets a vision in which she sees some women hanging from a tree, with a demon also appearing in front of her. Sabrina is shocked by this, so she immediately leaves. When she gets home, though, she realizes that her aunts have invited the high priest of the Church of Night, Father Blackwood, to try to help her clear her doubts. Following this, Sabrina asks him a few questions about the Dark Lord and having to leave her friends. Blackwood then tells Sabrina that leaving her mortal friends is important because witches and mortals don't mix well in the world. He adds that her parents' case was different because Edward personally asked the Dark Lord to let him marry Diana, who was a mortal. Shortly after, Blackwood also mentions that the Dark Lord is a lord of free will, and that whenever Sabrina wants to leave the Church of Night, she'll be free to do so. After Blackwood leaves, Sabrina asks how Hilda felt on the day of her baptism. Instead of convincing Sabrina, Hilda mentions that there are days she regrets her decision. Zelda hears this and gets angry, so she kills Hilda and buries her in front of the house. Later that day, Susie gets bullied again, so Sabrina goes to report to Mary, who says that sometimes it's best to fight fire with hellfire. Even though she tries to make it seem like she's not advising Sabrina to hurt the boys, the girl suddenly gets an idea. She then goes into the woods to seek the help of the Weird Sisters to teach the boys a lesson.
And how are we feeling today?
Despite their differences, the Weird Sisters agree to help Sabrina, and that night they give the boys a huge scare and warn them never to hurt Susie or any girl at school again. Shortly after, Hilda gets resurrected, and she asks why Zelda keeps killing her. Zelda then says that she'll keep doing it as long as Hilda continues to mess things up.
Took you long enough.
She also tells Hilda that she should keep all her regrets to herself instead of telling Sabrina about them. The next day is Sabrina's baptism, and in the morning, Hilda shows her the dress she'll be wearing to the woods at midnight. Sabrina still looks worried, so Hilda tells her to stop worrying because the baptism isn't as bad as she thinks. While she's then having breakfast, Zelda tells Sabrina not to go to school so she can spend the day preparing for her baptism. Even though she doesn't like this because she hasn't said goodbye to her friends yet, Sabrina agrees to stay at home. Later that day, she then tells Ambrose that she's trying to find a way to be a full witch without leaving her friends. However, he says it's not worth it because they'll eventually grow old and die while she remains young for a long time. Since she might no longer see them again, Sabrina begs Ambrose to let her go to a party with her friends, and he allows her. At the party, Sabrina enjoys herself.
To my surprise,
And her friends also present a cake to her. As the party runs into midnight, Sabrina suddenly remembers that she has to be in the woods for her baptism. Before she leaves, though, she tells Harvey that she'll always love him. He looks confused by this, but she just runs away to meet Blackwood and her aunt in the woods. After a while, the baptism starts, and Sabrina agrees to join the coven and become a full witch. As she's about to write her name into the Book of the Beast, Blackwood mentions that she has to be ready to obey the Dark Lord's every command. Since this doesn't seem like freedom to her, Sabrina refuses to sign the book, and as she suddenly sees an image of her parents telling her to run, she flees the woods. Blackwood immediately sends some witches after her, but before they can catch her at the house, Ambrose threatens them with a spell, which makes them turn back and leave Sabrina. Shortly after, the Dark Lord appears to Mary. She apologizes for not helping him get Sabrina to sign the book. She then begs for his mercy and says she'll ensure Sabrina eventually writes her name in the book. The next morning, Zelda sounds really angry at Sabrina because she embarrassed the family in front of everyone. Sabrina then mentions that she saw her parents, and this leaves her aunts shocked. Later that day at school, Hawthorne returns, so he calls Sabrina to see him. As she goes to his office, he eventually gets possessed by the Dark Lord, who tells Sabrina that he'll make sure she signs his book no matter what it takes. Sabrina gets scared by this. And after running to the bathroom to catch her breath, Mary shows up and tries to comfort her while saying she knows Hawthorne is a hard man to deal with. When Sabrina returns home, Zelda informs her that the entire family has been sued by the Church of Night because of what Sabrina did. Since this means that Zelda and Hilda will lose their anti-aging abilities, they seem so concerned and tell her that she needs to make amends.
Your trial begins at midnight.
Zelda also goes to visit Blackwood to get him to help her family, but he says he'll only do that if Sabrina admits to her wrongdoing and accepts to sign the book. After she leaves, Blackwood sees Mary in his office and asks what she's there for. She then says that she's there to see to it that Sabrina signs the book and follows the Dark Lord's wishes. Blackwood says he can handle it on his own, but Mary tells him that her ways will turn out better. Elsewhere, Sabrina tells Ambrose that she'd like to fight the court order they got, so he tells her to visit a lawyer named Webster. Even though Webster is a mortal lawyer, he's also very good at witch law because Edward taught him everything he needed to know.
Bit reclusive, maybe?
In school that day, Rosalind complains about how Hawthorne just banned some books in the library. Sabrina tries to fight Hawthorne about this, but he doesn't listen to her. As Sabrina then wonders why Rosalind cares so much for those books, she says that her doctor recently told her that she's going blind soon, so she wants to read all the books she can before it happens. A while later, Sabrina visits Webster.
Are you Daniel Webster?
And he immediately lets her in when he hears her name. However, as she tells him what she came for, he says he can't represent her. Later that night, Sabrina and her aunts head to the Church of Night for their hearing. Surprisingly, Webster comes in, saying he's there to represent Sabrina, and everyone is shocked by this. Zelda does not support this, but Sabrina says she wants the lawyer to stay.
He's my lawyer, Aunt Zelda.
Following this, Webster fights the case in court, and with Hilda's help, he shows proof that Sabrina can refuse the baptism because Diana already took her to one in a Catholic church. Blackwood is disappointed by this, but after consulting with the Dark Lord, it is agreed that Sabrina's charges will be dropped only if she accepts to join the Academy of Unseen Arts. She agrees to this, and her aunt's anti-aging powers return, though Hilda is excommunicated for her involvement in the Catholic baptism. After the win, Webster advises Sabrina to learn everything she can about the Dark Lord so she can defeat him one day. Elsewhere, while Harvey and his older brother Tommy are talking in his room, their dad comes over to tell his younger son that he needs to start working in the mines. Tommy says he doesn't think his brother needs to do that, but their dad says it's a family tradition that won't stop because Harvey suddenly likes drawing comics, which he believes are useless. The next day, Harvey follows Tommy to the mines, but he's too scared to enter. It then turns out that when he was younger, he saw a monster in the mines and he's still terrified of it. Tommy tells him to go home, and Harvey does as he's told. However, as their dad finds out about this, he nearly attacks Harvey for missing his shift. But Tommy defends him and says he doesn't want his brother to waste his life in the mines like him and their father. Meanwhile, Mary appears to Blackwood again, and he tells her that he has already made some progress by getting Sabrina to join the academy. However, Mary says he won't be quite successful like her because she plans to turn Sabrina's mortal friends against her so that she'll be forced to choose the Dark Lord's path. The next day at school, Mary then starts a secret book club to help Rosalind read the book she wants so that Sabrina will start to trust her.
Oh.
The next day, Sabrina arrives at the Academy of Unseen Arts for her first day. When she gets there, a boy named Quentin meets her at the gate and takes her in. She then meets Blackwood, who welcomes her to the school and mentions that she'll have to start basic classes first. Following this, she is taken to music class, which is taught by Lady Blackwood. Later that day, a boy named Nicholas sits near Sabrina at lunch, and he interests her with a conversation about his classes as a warlock. The weird sisters eventually join them at the table,
How are you enjoying the academy so far?
and as Prudence can't help but be rude, Nicholas leaves with Sabrina. After a while, Prudence and her sisters then set Sabrina up for a dangerous test usually conducted for newbies at the school. Luckily, Sabrina survives, thanks to Salem, but Prudence is not too pleased with this. The two girls eventually fight, and Zelda is called to the school about what happened. During a meeting with Blackwood, Sabrina mentions that she hasn't been doing anything serious, and Zelda also tells the priest to let her start conjuring classes. Following this, Blackwood gives Sabrina a difficult puzzle box to solve so that she can show she's ready for higher classes. After she leaves, Nicholas sees the box and tells Sabrina that her dad made the box. He also says that Edward wrote journals that could help solve the puzzles. Elsewhere, Rosalind goes to spend the weekend at Susie's place, and there she learns about her friend's weird uncle who has been sick for a long time. Rosalind asks about him,
What happened to him?
and Susie says that he got sick after seeing something in the mines that messed him up. The next day, Rosalind tells Harvey about her weekend and how she was scared of what Susie said about her uncle Jesse. Since he also saw something in the mines as a kid, Harvey suggests going to see Jesse. After speaking to Susie about it, she agrees to let Harvey see her uncle, but when he starts talking about the mines, Jesse suddenly attacks him while saying that someone will eat his soul. Susie eventually helps knock her uncle out, and the three friends then tie him up. Elsewhere, the weird sisters take Sabrina for another dangerous test. After she survives, she sees Quentin again, and he tells her that he's actually a ghost. He adds that he died during one of the weird tests at the academy. Sabrina is shocked by this, and as she realizes that there are others like him, she calls her aunts to help the kids get revenge. Following this, the weird sisters are taught a lesson to stop putting students through dangerous tests. Meanwhile, Mary visits Sabrina's house and sneaks into her room to put spells around the mirrors so that she'll be able to see what's happening inside. The next day, as Sabrina is about to leave the academy to head home, Nicholas helps her get a book she can use to open the puzzle. That night, while she's speaking to Harvey about what happened at Susie's house, Mary watches her through a mirror in her house. After the call ends, Sabrina finally solves the puzzle, but it releases a sleep demon named Badabat. She immediately runs to inform her aunts, so they all head down with Ambrose to seal the house with a spell. Since the monster needs to know the spell to leave the house, Zelda tells her family not to tell Badabat anything. Even though Hilda also says they must not sleep so that Badabat won't control them, she eventually uses her powers to make them sleep. Mary sees this and warns Badabat not to hurt Sabrina, but the demon doesn't listen. Badabat then enters the dreams of Sabrina and her family, so she can exploit their weaknesses to get the spell she needs to escape. Seeing as Sabrina needs help, Mary enters her dream and offers to wake her up as long as she agrees to run away. Sabrina looks surprised to see Mary, but she eventually asks no questions because she's about to be saved. After she wakes up from her nightmare, Sabrina is finally able to trap the demon and free her family members, who wake up immediately. That night, though, she still goes to see Mary to ask who she really is. Even though she initially doesn't want to say anything, Mary tells Sabrina that she's a witch who was instructed by Edward to watch and protect her. Sabrina then realizes that Mary has been manipulating her, so she gets angry and leaves. The next day, Hilda starts a job at a local bookstore to keep herself busy. Zelda also gets chosen by Blackwood to be the midwife who will deliver his children since his wife is pregnant. Meanwhile, Harvey, Rosalind, and Susie all see visions of Jesse in their different houses. Later that day at school, they tell Sabrina about this. They also add that it seems Jesse is possessed. Sabrina instantly dismisses this suggestion, and when she gets home, she reports it to her aunts. But they say they can't do anything about it because they don't care about mortals. Sabrina also asks Ambrose for help, but he says there's nothing he can do. Following this, Sabrina projects herself into Susie's house to see what Jesse looks like. When she sees him, she realizes that he has been possessed by a devouring worm. She immediately tells the monster to leave, but he says he can't. He also says Jesse was the one who freed him, and that he'll move on to her friends because they're the only ones who have touched him recently. Sabrina says she won't let that happen, but before she can do anything, he attacks and nearly kills her. Luckily, Ambrose is there to save her, and she survives. Since the demon said something about Jesse freeing him, Sabrina goes into the mines with Harvey, who specifically asks to follow her to show that he can face his fears. After a while, Sabrina finds the demon's trapping stone, but she hides it from Harvey. The next day, during a class at the Academy of Unseen Arts, Sabrina tells Blackwood about Jesse, but he says that it's not his concern. Since her friends are in danger of being the monster's next victims, she asks if she can perform an exorcism on Jesse, but Blackwood says that witches are forbidden to do such. Sabrina is disappointed by this, but when she gets home,
How was the academy, love?
she sees Mary in the house with her aunts. Sabrina asks if they knew each other before, but her aunts mention that Mary just confessed to them that Edward sent her before he died. Even though she still doesn't trust Mary, the woman offers to help her perform the exorcism using a special ritual. Zelda doesn't like this idea, but Sabrina says she wants to do it to protect her friends. Following this, Sabrina leaves the house with Mary and Hilda to perform the exorcism on Jesse when he's home alone. After they enter the house, they immediately start the ritual, but the demon appears to be really strong. Seeing as her help is needed, Zelda then joins them to complete the ritual. With this, the devouring worm leaves Jesse, and the witches bury it. After a while, though, Jesse dies, and Sabrina is left disappointed because she believes her efforts to save the man were futile. However, it turns out that Mary actually went back to kill him because she only needed him to help fulfill the Dark Lord's desire to see Sabrina perform an exorcism. Following Jesse's death, Mary regains Sabrina's trust for helping her. A few days later, the Spellman family receives an invitation to participate in a feast where the Dark Lord will get to choose a queen who will be feasted upon by the members of the Church of Night. Zelda says she'll represent the family, but Sabrina can't seem to understand this because her aunt could be killed if she's chosen. However,
What if you get picked?
Zelda doesn't change her mind, and she says that it's a great honor to be selected by the Dark Lord. Later that day in school, Mary tells the students to learn about their family history as a class assignment. When he gets home, Harvey asks his grandfather about their history, and he learns that they used to be hunters who stole the land in which they started mining. Susie also finds out from her dad that the first person from their family to live in the town was a woman named Dorothea. When Rosalind meets her grandmother, she is told that she'll eventually get blind because the women in their family were cursed by witches. However, she adds that the curse comes with the ability to see visions of the past and future. Rosalind is scared of this, but her grandmother says there's nothing to worry about because it's not really a bad thing.
If it happened already.
Meanwhile, Blackwood and his wife begin the selection process for the queen by making the participants pick a paper from a basket. During the process, Sabrina barges in and requests to take Zelda's place because she believes her aunt won't let her die if she's chosen. Since Zelda doesn't want to make it seem like that, she agrees to let Sabrina take the stand. Shortly after, Prudence is selected as the queen, with Sabrina being the handmaiden who will take care of her before she's feasted upon. Sabrina tries to convince Prudence not to let herself be slaughtered, but she says she has always wanted to be queen.
I assume my room's upstairs?
Later that day, Prudence follows her to school and hears Harvey discussing his family history. Just then, she realizes that he's from a family of witch hunters. As she gets angry and accuses Harvey's family of being killers, Sabrina quickly takes her away before she says too much. While they then argue about whether Harvey should be killed, Mary sees the girls and tells them to come to her office. There, Sabrina asks Mary if there's a way for Prudence to avoid the feast, and the woman suggests going to see an old woman who once fled the church after getting selected as queen. A while later, they head to the woods to find where the woman lives. After they meet her, she shares her experience of how she ran away when she discovered that her priest at the time had an ulterior motive. Suddenly, they hear a gunshot in the woods, and as they check around, they see that a familiar has been shot. Since the hunters are still around, Mary uses a spell to help conceal the witches. When the hunters get closer, the witches see that it's Harvey's family. Due to the spell, they're unable to see the witches or the familiar, so they leave. Prudence then tells Sabrina that something like that will happen again if Harvey and his family are not killed. Later that day, Sabrina then goes to meet Harvey, and he tells her about what his family did. Since he didn't have anything to do with it, Sabrina hugs him and silently recites a spell to protect him. The next day, Lady Blackwood starts having contractions, so she comes over to meet Zelda, while she's then being attended to.
You understand, don't you?
Lady Blackwood mentions that she's worried that the weird sisters would harm the twins she's carrying. Zelda tells her not to worry about it, but the woman then mentions that she has already made sure Prudence will die. As she says this, Sabrina is also present, and she realizes that Lady Blackwood deliberately made Prudence the queen because she's the priest's secret daughter who might inherit his position instead of the twins. Sabrina then tells Prudence about it, but to confirm that it's the truth,
She'd be murdering you in front of the entire coven.
the priest and his wife are invited to the Spellman house for dinner with the weird sisters. A truth potion is added to the food so that Lady Blackwood will confess to what she did. Father Blackwood is shocked by this, but as he's also asked if Prudence is his daughter, he says she is. Following this, Sabrina and Zelda advise the priest to cancel the feast, and he agrees. However, as he's about to make the announcement, someone in the church sacrifices herself. So Blackwood allows her to be used for the feast. Elsewhere, Agatha and Dorcas decide to hurt Harvey and Tommy for being part of a family that killed witches in the past. The next day, Zelda gets a call informing her of an accident in the mines. Sabrina hears this and quickly runs to the mines to find Harvey. Luckily, she finds him alive, but he says that Tommy has still not been found. After a while, Susie gets a vision and sees Dorothea telling her to enter the mines. She does just this and returns with a helmet belonging to Tommy. She says she didn't see anyone there, and this makes everyone believe that there are no other survivors. Harvey insists on continuing the search, but his dad tells him to forget about it. Shortly after, he then plans Tommy's funeral, and at the ceremony, Harvey gets pissed at his father. During their fight, Tommy's helmet falls from the coffin, and as Rosalind touches it, she sees a vision of Dorcas and Agatha smashing two dolls. Rosalind doesn't know what this means, so she just chooses to ignore it. Later on, Sabrina sees how broken Harvey is, so she goes to meet Mary to ask about the possibility of bringing Tommy back since his body hasn't been found. Mary says it's a very difficult ritual to perform and that she'll need to take a life to replace Tommy's own. Even though she also mentions that she has the book for the ritual in her office, Mary tells Sabrina that it's too risky to try.
But you couldn't cross that line.
The next day, Rosalind tells Sabrina about what she saw, and this makes her realize that Tommy's death wasn't natural. She also discovers that Harvey only survived because of the protection spell she put on him the other day. Following this, she goes to meet Prudence to report what her sisters did. When they're confronted about it, they mention that they only did it because the boys are from a family of witch hunters. However, Prudence says that she doesn't support what they did, and since Agatha is the one who brought up the idea,
Is that true?
Sabrina says she'll be sacrificed to bring Tommy back. Shortly after, she steals the Book of the Dead from Mary's office and joins Prudence, Dorcas, and Nicholas in performing the ritual on Agatha. In the process, Sabrina kills Agatha, but she's then buried in front of the Spellman house because a part of the land is filled with special soil that resurrects dead people. After a while, Agatha suddenly returns from the dead and is incredibly shocked to be alive again. Meanwhile, Ambrose sees what Sabrina did, and this gets him angry because his cousin keeps trying to object to the right order of things. He also says that what she did will have consequences because the ritual is meant to take a life to replace another one. Sabrina immediately runs to the mines to check if Tommy is alive, but she sees that someone has broken through the blockage at the mine's entrance. As she then goes to Harvey's house, Harvey confirms that Tommy is back.
Tommy. He survived.
But that he's still in shock and hasn't said anything or eaten. Since this sounds weird to her, Sabrina starts suspecting that something is wrong. The next day at school, Rosalind tells Sabrina that she recently had a dream in which she saw some dogs attacking Tommy. Since she's been seeing visions lately, Sabrina convinces her to visit Tommy to see if she'll get any visions if she touches him. Rosalind does as she's told, and she sees a vision of Tommy looking lost in a foggy place. Something eventually scares Rosalind, and she immediately leaves Tommy.
Roz, are you okay?
Meanwhile, Susie continues to see Dorothea, and as they keep talking, she mentions that Spellmans are witches. Elsewhere, Agatha suddenly gets sick and starts vomiting sand, so her sisters eventually have to tell Father Blackwood, who scolds Zelda for being unable to control Sabrina. Zelda says she wasn't aware of this, but she promises to make Sabrina correct what she did. When she gets home, she accuses Sabrina of continuously bringing shame to the family, but the girl says she doesn't care what Blackwood thinks. Since her aunts won't help her, Sabrina goes to meet Mary, who says she thinks Tommy's soul is lost in a limbo where he could be attacked by a soul eater. Sabrina then asks for her help to find Tommy, so Mary helps her open a portal to limbo. During her search for Tommy, Sabrina sees her mom and realizes that she's there because she still has unfinished business in the world. Before they can talk, the soul eater starts running around limbo. Luckily, Sabrina eventually finds Tommy's soul, but he's unable to get out with her. With this, Mary tells Sabrina that the only thing left for her to do is to tell Harvey the truth so that he'll let Tommy's body be killed. Even though she doesn't want to do it, Sabrina eventually tells him everything, including that she's a witch. Harvey is shocked by her revelation, and he says she shouldn't have brought Tommy back. He also tells her to leave his house because he needs some time to himself. As Sabrina mentions that Tommy still has to be killed, Harvey says he'll do it by himself. After she leaves, she then hears a gunshot, which indicates that Harvey has killed Tommy. Shortly after, she heads home to meet Zelda, who consoles her despite what she did. Elsewhere, Susie and Rosalind meet up to discuss everything that has been happening around them. Susie then mentions what Dorothea said, and Rosalind also says she has recently suspected that Sabrina is a witch. Since this likely means she's evil, Rosalind and Susie are left confused about what to do next. Meanwhile, Mary looks happy because she has successfully manipulated Sabrina's friends to make them think she's evil. The next day, Rosalind and Susie confront Sabrina about being a witch. She initially denies it, but since she can't lie to their faces, she finally confesses and says she has always wanted to tell them. Sabrina also says she's not evil, so her friends forgive her. Since this is not what Mary expected, she decides to take one final drastic measure.
But I would have to wait till midnight.
Later that night, she summons the 13 witches who were killed in the town by witch hunters after their coven sacrificed them. She then tells them to take revenge by killing the town's residents. Before the witches do anything, Ambrose sees them while walking around the woods with a friend named Luke. As he's about to escape, the witches tell him to inform the Church of Night that they're coming. Elsewhere, Blackwood senses a bad omen, so he calls all the witches in the town to meet him at the church. Before he tells them what to do, Ambrose comes in and warns everyone that the 13 witches are coming for revenge. Blackwood looks relieved, and he says that as long as the witches stay inside the church and recite a protective spell, they'll be fine. However, Sabrina asks about the mortals, but Blackwood says he doesn't care about them. When they arrive home, Sabrina says she can't let the mortals die, and Zelda agrees. Since there is a storm shelter in the school that all the mortals in the town can hide, Zelda and her family use a spell to trigger a tornado that allows everyone to move there. Unfortunately, Harvey refuses to leave the house because his dad is too drunk to move, so Sabrina sends Nicholas to help him. Rosalind's grandmother also refuses to head to the shelter, and since she can't be left alone, Rosalind and Susie decide to wait with her. After midnight, Sabrina and her family start reciting a spell to keep the witches from entering the school. During the process, Lady Blackwood goes into labor, so the priest teleports Zelda away from the school. Luke also takes Ambrose away, and since it's now becoming hard to protect the mortals, Mary comes over to inform Sabrina of a solution she has. Sabrina agrees to do whatever it takes, so Mary takes her to sign the Book of the Beast to receive special powers, which can defeat the witches and save the town. Sabrina looks reluctant to do this, but Mary successfully manipulates her. Following this, she then gains powers to defeat the witches and save everyone from getting killed. Elsewhere, Zelda helps deliver Blackwood's babies, but his wife dies in the process. Instead of twins, though, Zelda gives him only a baby boy. She then tells him that the other baby didn't survive. However, it turns out that Zelda kept the other baby because it was a girl who Blackwood would have killed because of his beliefs. Later that night, Sabrina checks up on Harvey, and he thanks her for sending Nicholas.
Thanks for sending that guy, Nick.
He also says that he still loves her, but Sabrina says that after what she did earlier, it might be safe for him to stay away from her so that she doesn't end up hurting him. Meanwhile, Mary brings Hawthorne to her house and tells him about her involvement in getting Sabrina to sign the book. As he looks scared, she also announces herself as Lilith before killing him. The next day, Sabrina tells Ambrose about her plan to stay away from her friends. However, he says she should be doing the opposite. Sabrina doesn't seem sure about this, and she says she wishes she could speak to her mom. Since she remembers seeing her mom in limbo, Sabrina decides to host a seance to summon her mom's spirit. Elsewhere, Mary starts to wonder if the Dark Lord has forgotten her because he hasn't contacted her since she got Sabrina to write her name in his book. As she asks for a sign to show that he's still with her, Sabrina enters her office and asks to borrow the Book of the Dead so she can use it for her seance. Mary willingly borrows her, but since she can't predict what Diana will tell her daughter, she says to herself that she'll have to interrupt the session. Meanwhile, Sabrina gives Harvey some enchanted pens to help him draw better. He accepts this, and after a while, she also brings his dad a bottle of eggnog, which he doesn't know is enchanted to make him stop drinking. A while later, Sabrina invites the Weird Sisters to do the seance with her, and Nicholas also asks to be a part of it. Later that day, they perform the seance and Sabrina sees her mom. She immediately asks why Diana is still in limbo and if there's something she can help with, but her mom says it's unsafe for her to talk about it. Almost immediately, Prudence mentions that there's an interference, and as this affects the seance, Diana disappears, and Sabrina's aunts scold the students for trying a seance in the house. It then turns out that Mary actually caused the interference by putting out the fire on the Yule log inside the house, which is meant to keep spirits away. This allows a group of invisible kids called the Yule Lads to enter the house. After Hilda, Zelda, and Ambrose notice strange things happening inside the house, they eventually figure out that the Yule Lads are around. Zelda then suggests calling their mom, Gryla, to come and take them away. Elsewhere, Susie gets a job as an elf for a Santa named Bartel. Rosalind visits her at the mall, but she senses that something is wrong. After the day's work, it then turns out that Bartel is a monster who kidnaps children and traps their souls inside different wax figures. Meanwhile, Gryla arrives at the Spellman family house and agrees to take her children away if she gets a bottle of gin in return. Zelda gives her what she wants, but before Gryla leaves, she hears the sound of a baby crying inside the house. Following this, she refuses to leave until she takes the baby away. Zelda refuses to give up the baby, but Gryla says she can't decide whether the baby will stay because she's not the mother. As they argue, Diana suddenly appears in the room and offers to be the mediator. She then gets them to drop the baby in a salt circle, after which they're told to drag the baby on each hand. Zelda doesn't agree to do this, and Gryla wins the baby. However, as Gryla leaves, Diana and Sabrina inform Zelda that they still have the real baby. She adds that the baby Gryla took away is a stuffed toy that was made to look like a baby with a spell. Before they can ask Diana any questions, though, she disappears. Shortly after, Rosalind comes over to report to Sabrina that Susie has been kidnapped. After doing some research, they find out that she's with Bartel, and since Gryla is the perfect person to deal with him because of her love for children, Zelda sets her up against the demon. Following this, Susie is saved, and Gryla kills Bartel. A while later, Sabrina sees Diana again and asks why she's in limbo. She then says that she stayed back because she was scared no one would be able to protect her daughter. However, since she has seen how Zelda and Hilda care for Sabrina, Diana says she can now leave in peace. Sabrina then asks for advice regarding her love for Harvey and her friends, and Diana tells her that it's best not to bring them too close to her witch life. After Diana leaves, Harvey visits Sabrina and tells her about how his dad suddenly hates drinking. As she sounds happy, Harvey realizes that she added something to the eggnog. He then returns the enchanted pens to her and says that he doesn't want her to use her powers on him or around him. Sabrina looks disappointed by this, and Harvey eventually leaves. She then returns to meet her family and spend Christmas Eve with them. And with that, Season 1 comes to an end. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss Season 2.